Tina with my homesteading project, and today I'm finally going to get to the Big Allotment Challenge video that I was tagged by Doug and Stacy. Their Off-Grid Homestead channel. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link to it below and you can go ahead and check them out. They have everything off-grid and recipes and animals and all that kind of stuff. So really great channel, really great couple. Hope you'll check them out. I'll go ahead and put a link below. So we're going to jump right into these questions. Let me get my cheaters. Okay, so now allotment challenge. This, well, we'll start out by saying this obviously started over in Europe somewhere, probably the UK. They have a little different system. If you live in like a city or whatnot, you don't have land of your own to farm, you can more than likely, usually it's a waiting list that you get on to rent a plot where you can garden. We don't have to do that here so much in the US. Although you can't, there are community gardens, and like where I used to live, there was a church that had acreage that they rented plots where you could garden. So there are those things here in the U.S. as well, but I'm just going to go ahead and cover this from a perspective of the land that you live on, whatever it may be. So the first question is, how long have you had your allotment? So we have been on our property here for a little over 2 years, and so I have planted 2 gardens. The first garden was just kind of a half attempt at a garden. The first year I was here, I wasn't really planning on doing a garden, but I went ahead and just kind of threw some stuff in the ground. And this last season I actually did build a garden. So how long did I wait for my land? We moved here, about 1,000 miles from Washington to Idaho. From the time we decided to move to the time we got here was about 2 weeks. So, which is pretty unusual. But, so like I said, we didn't have to sit on a waiting list or anything like that. 2 weeks we were here. Where did you learn about gardening? Now, I did not grow up in a farming family. I did not grow up in a family that grew a garden, so I had no gardening experience when I built my first garden when we lived in Washington. Everything I learned was from books. I went to the library, checked out gardening books, books that I really liked, that I referenced a lot. I went ahead and purchased, and the rest of them I purchased at garage sales and mostly thrift stores. Actually, this whole bookcase here, all of these books are all gardening books. I have things on herbs, vegetables, fruits, all types of different gardening methods, square foot gardening, hydroponics, mulch, you know, I've got all different kinds of books. And I suggest that you research. But along with that research, it's going to be experimentation. A lot of what I've learned has just been from trial and error, putting something in the ground and seeing if it grows well. Now, I had a pretty good system going where we lived before, but I've had to relearn a lot of things in my new environment. Here I have a very short growing season, where before I had a very long growing season. Here it's very dry and hot and arid, and where I was before was much more lush. I almost never had to water when I lived in Washington, which of course makes sense. But so I'm learning here what I can grow. I'm re-experimenting with different things to find out what grows best here in a short season that can tolerate the heat. So it's all going to be about research and experimentation. Let's see, number 4. Do I plant a winter garden? No, I do not. I will insert a photo of what my garden looks like right now. Right now it's under about 2 to 3 feet of snow. So it gets very cold here in, below zero for a lot of the winter, and we get a lot of snow. And so until I have like a greenhouse, or I'm kind of contemplating a wallapini, I will not be winter gardening other than what I can grow in windowsills and an indoor greenhouse. So, number 5, what has been your biggest success this year or ever? This last year, my tomatoes did really, really well. The first year I threw some tomatoes in the ground. They didn't get very tall. I did get some tomatoes. So this last year when I planted my tomatoes, I really didn't expect too much more of a big difference, although I did go from kind of a little bit of a lasagna garden to, I used the Ruth Stout deep mulch system. That made a huge difference. Huge difference. I highly recommend a deep mulch system if you are in a dry climate, because it made a huge, huge difference. The deep mulch and drip lines, my tomatoes just went gangbusters. The bushes were so huge, the trellises could not support them. Huge yield of tomatoes. So that was a huge success this last year. What has been my biggest gardening disaster? Well, I wouldn't really say anything's been a disaster. The first year we were here, my garden, was not good. Didn't turn out well. But as I said, it's experimental, trial and error. This last year, the only thing that I would say was a failure was potatoes. Now, yes, I live in Idaho, and I did not even intend to plant potatoes here because I can get them by the box for super cheap. But my neighbor is a trucker, and he was trucking a bunch of seed potatoes for commercial potato farms. And he had a bunch left over in the bottom of his truck after his last haul. And so he brought me a bunch of seed potatoes over. Now, since they were for commercial use, they had been treated somehow, and which I wasn't real crazy about. But I went ahead and put them in the ground because I got them for free from my neighbor. They grew really well, but when I went to dig them up, they were all eaten. The voles had eaten the entire crop pretty much. There were only a couple potatoes that were untouched. Now, I don't know if that is because they were treated, but all I can say is that none of my other root crops were affected at all. None of my other root crops were eaten up. Only the potatoes. So, I don't know. I don't know if the voles just like potatoes better than anything else, or what the reason is, but that was the only thing that failed. That was the only root crop that was eaten at all. So that was a failure this last year. Number 7, do you have a tried and true variety that you always grow? As I said, I am trying new varieties here of things because I'm in a different area now. I did have a lot of success with my Blue Hubbard squash this year. It did really well, so I will replant that. We really enjoy it. As I said, my tomatoes, I planted several different varieties, and the varieties that did really well, I will replant this year. I've saved seeds from things that did well. And so I think the organic Bradleys did really, really well. I know for sure I will replant those. I always plant Danver carrots. Those have done well here as well as in Washington. So the Danvers I plant. But as I said, I'm still experimenting with varieties, so I don't have really a tried and true right now for this area. Are you planning on trying anything new next year? Number 8, yes. As I said, I'm in the experimental stage. I will definitely be trying new varieties for my dried beans this year. My red beans did fairly decent. Although I think I'm going to try a new variety. Someone suggested the Cherokee Trail of Tears beans, and I may try those this year. My black beans did not do well at all. They did okay, but not really very good, not very high yield. So I will definitely be trying a new variety, and I'm still kind of researching what I want to try this next year. I will definitely be doing a different type of green bean, although my green beans did very well this year. I wasn't impressed with the actual bean itself, so I'm going to try a different variety this year. So, and I'm still deciding, so it's a little early to say what varieties I'm going to be trying yet. Number 9, how do you preserve your crops? Okay, mostly right now I can and I dehydrate. When I first started preserving my vegetables, I did not have a pressure canner. I just had a water bath canner that I used for jams and things like that. And so I froze my vegetables, which works out really well, but I'm trying to get away from freezer food storage. I would rather things be shelf stable. And so I started canning, and I canned a whole bunch. And my shelves are pretty full. So canning is wonderful, but it does take up a lot of space. So I am doing a lot of dehydrating now as well. I got a better dehydrator, and so towards the end of the season. And so I started to do a lot of dehydrating, because that is also shelf stable and it takes up much less space. I have a vacuum sealer, and so I vacuum seal it, and I don't use the Mylar bags right now. I just use the regular plastic bags, and then I put those in a dark Rubbermaid tote to keep the light out, to keep them from deteriorating as quickly. And that's a real good way to make things shelf stable. So mostly canning and dehydrating is what I do now. Number 10, what is your favorite meal to cook with veggies from your plot? Oh, I don't really think we have a favorite. We cook everything we grow, so which is one thing I would recommend, is grow what your family likes. It doesn't make any sense to grow things that you don't care for, or it turns out you don't like them after you've grown them, because that's just a waste of time and money and energy. If you want to try a new vegetable, or if you've never had okra and you're thinking about growing okra, go down to a farmer's market, buy some okra, or go to your local organic market, buy some okra, cook it up, try it. If your family really likes it, then go ahead and plant it. But if it's not something that your family's going to like, your family's going to eat, I don't recommend you wasting your time growing it. My family, especially in the winter, really enjoys homemade tomato soup and grilled goat cheese sandwiches. So we really like tomato soup, so I try to make up a bunch of that. Let's see. My squash did really well. Squash is very versatile. You can eat it mashed as a side dish. You can make it into a pie. You can make soup. Squash, we really enjoy squash. We do eat a lot of beans. So the red beans and the black beans that we've grown, and then I dehydrate those, and I can either can them or I can just leave them dried. Those are favorites. And of course, when lettuces and things like that are growing, we have a lot of salads. Stew. My family loves stew. So, your carrots and your celery and your potatoes and onions and things like that. Just anything you can throw in a stew, or a soup. We really enjoy that. So, those were the 10 questions. And if you have any additional questions about our garden, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I will go ahead and link my playlist for my gardening videos. I really don't have a ton of gardening videos, but you can kind of see the different things I've talked about in my playlist of my various garden videos. So I'll go ahead and post a link for that. And I will go ahead and tag Lucky Robin. I really like her channel. She is not on a official, what people would call homestead. She gardens in a neighborhood. And she does a lot of what I did before we moved here, because we were on, although we were on a just shy of a 1/4 acre, we were in town, and so I had raised beds and I gardened in a neighborhood. And so she's doing that now as well. They're saving up for their homestead, but she has a really cool garden. I believe she's got front yard, backyard, you know, she's got chickens, she's got rabbits. But she's got a really great, some great gardening videos. So I'll go ahead and tag her for this video, and can't wait to see what she comes up with and the answers to her questions. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Thank you, Doug and Stacy, for tagging me in this. It's been kind of fun. And you guys have a great afternoon. And remember, God is good. We'll talk to you later. Bye.